from our 7 Tasmania studios. Your nightly news with Peter Murphy begins now.
Criticism of the new Macquarie Point Stadium is as strong as ever tonight, despite the release of new renders the government hoped would allay fears about its impact on Hobart Cenotaph. The RSL boss saying his fears have been confirmed.
The long-awaited renders of the Macquarie Point Stadium were supposed to allay fears about the impacts on Hobart Cenotaph. Instead, the RSL says those fears have been confirmed.
We believe, as we always have, 3 sightlines have been destroyed. So the sightline to the George's Church is gone, the sightline to open spaces, and the sightline out to a clear view of the Derwent Valley is gone.
The proposed stadium size and proximity to the Cenotaph previously sparking worries from the RSL, who vowed to fight to protect the memorial from overdevelopment, despite earlier writing to Premier Rockcliffe pointing out the historic, cultural and spiritual significance of the Cenotaph to the community. Mr Huddy admits he feels let down.
If that's what you want, then that's fine. Let's take it to legislation like we've already put forward, and let the MPs vote on whether they think that's acceptable.
The Greens say the stadium's impact is unacceptable and demonstrate why it should not be approved.
And that is why the RSL has come to the Greens to ask for our support to introduce legislation that will override the POS process and actually enshrine protections for those sightlines in law.
The state government trying to make amends.
I think it can be improved in terms of that, and exactly that's my point about working with the RSL and our veteran community on the design process.
Melinda Ogden, 7 Tasmania News.
Police believe a fire that tore through a Lutana home early this morning was deliberately lit. The blaze breaking out at the vacant property on Anea Court at around 1 a.m. It was well alight by the time crews from Glenorchy and Hobart arrived. They extinguished the blaze quickly, but the home, which is currently under construction, suffered significant damage. Anyone with information is urged to come forward. Arson is also likely to blame for a fire in another vacant home in the state's north. Crews finding the St Leonard's house well alight when they arrived around 9 last night. The property was in the process of being developed. After years of complaints about inappropriate workplace behaviour within the fire and state emergency services, a former sex discrimination commissioner is being appointed to lead an independent review. Elizabeth Broderick will probe the culture within the departments with a view to improving conditions for staff and volunteers.
People have, in the workplace, had been subject to bullying and at a significant rate, and we wish to deal with that. We're wanting to have a respectful workforce, we're wanting a diverse workforce, we're wanting one where there is gender equity.
Her report will be handed down next year. A historic treaty with Tasmania's First Nations people is getting a step closer tonight as the Premier meets with Aboriginal leaders. It follows a 3-day encampment on the lawns of Parliament House. Satisfied protesters now packing up their tents.
Fists in the air, Aboriginal leaders leave a meeting with the Premier with a spring in their step. Hope for a Tasmanian truth-telling and treaty are closer than ever.
We've come out of the meeting feeling confident that a process for treaty has been put back on the table as a result of our recent actions.
Following the successful meeting, dozens of Aboriginal Tasmanians and their supporters are packing up camp on Parliament lawns after 3 days of protest fighting for the protection of their culture, defending their rights, lands and identities.
We feel that we have had our concerns heard by the Premier and he has committed to meeting with us to continue the discussions about what a process would look like.
If we all know that things took place that were wrong, why can't we all take responsibility for rectifying them? And that's what the treaty can do.
It's leaving the next generation more confident for their future.
For me, being a young, proud Palawa woman, I think, there's a lot more hope coming forward. And I'm just really, honoured and proud to be able to stand here with my mob for the last 3 days and actually get an outcome.
They insist the camp will return if the Premier doesn't follow through with legislating a treaty process.
We won't be going away and that Aboriginal people need to be made one of his priorities.
The Premier says he appreciated the opportunity to meet with the representatives of the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre and intend to keep engaging constructively on the issues raised. Rebecca Gaidaneris, 7 Tasmania News.
A Launceston woman has been charged with negligent driving over a fatal crash in Ravenswood almost a year ago that claimed the life of her passenger. A 36-year-old Mowbray man died after being thrown from a Subaru that had slammed into a power pole in the early hours of August 28. The 37-year-old driver has been charged with several other road safety offences and will face Launceston Magistrates Court later this month. Former Greens leader Bob Brown is looking for royal intervention, asking Tasmanian-born Queen Mary of Denmark to help free anti-whaling activist Paul Watson. Watson's been in custody since being arrested last month in a Dutch-controlled harbour. Facing 15 years in prison, he's accused of trespassing on a Japanese whaling ship.
Denmark government, which controls Greenland, is complicit here. I have written to Queen Mary to notify her of the action of the Danish authorities in wrongly arresting Paul Watson.
The Bob Brown Foundation is launching a petition to help drop the charges. Labor is accusing the Premier of betraying tourism operators in the state's northwest over delays with the new Spirit of Tasmania vessels. The first ship is due to be delivered in the third quarter of this year, but it remains unclear when the vessel will be operational. When pressed in question time, Jeremy Rockcliffe wouldn't be drawn on a timeline.
The ships will be in service as soon as possible after taking delivery in quarter 3, and that I'm still advised of that particular time frame.
The Premier promised that the Spirits would be in the water, fully operating this summer, and he's failed to deliver yet again.
The second ship is slated for delivery early next year. Meanwhile, it seems Jackie Lambi is fed up with Labor referring to the state government as the Liberal Lambi coalition, unleashing this spray on the party's leader.
I can ask Dean Winter to do one thing for me, and that is to actually get on being in opposition in Tasmania. That'd be fabulous. If you had something decent, you'd be sitting in there selling that, not trying to, not trying your love affair with the Jackie Lambis here.
Earlier today, Labor claimed the JLN members broke their agreement with the Premier by voting against the government on a motion. Tasmania's newest police constables are hitting the ground running, patrolling the Elizabeth Street Mall on their second day on the job. The fresh frontline officers bringing the number of serving police statewide to a record high. Over 1,400 officers are now on the beat.
The community, just chatting to people every day, working with people, and just the teamwork I really enjoy as part of the shift.
New recruits are being deployed around the state, 14 to the north, 11 to the west and the remaining in southern Tasmania. Hobart Skyline will soon look very different as council approves a 12-storey office building on Liverpool Street. The former Spotlight store will make way for the $40 million development.
The Hobart Rivulet will also be revealed. It is a Green Star building with sensor lights as well as lights going off in the evening. There will also be a walkway through from this particular place to Centre Point Car Park.
Subject to the pre-commitments for leasing, we expect construction should start hopefully early next year, around February.
Almost 200 people objected to the planning application, with most citing height as a cause for concern. A sense of pride may be stopping many Tasmanian businesses from reporting that they've fallen victim to cyber attacks. Experts admit it's difficult to gauge just how prevalent this type of crime is around the world. Tas ICT is doing its best to prepare organisations for the challenge of protecting themselves. A cyber security conference in Hobart hearing staff training is a vital security measure.
I don't think there's one thing that any organisation can do to avoid cybercrime. What they can do, from my perspective, is prepare their employees, make sure their employees understand that there are cyber criminals out there.
Dr Caputo says company insiders are just as likely to be responsible for data breaches as hackers. There's an end of an era in Launceston tomorrow as Nicholsons bookshop closes its doors for good. Former librarian Malcolm Nicholson has been running the Charles Street store for 33 years.
So I started selling books in Salamanca Market at first back in the 80s. Then I decided to sort of move to Launceston.
Mr Nicholson is retiring for health reasons and is giving away the remainder of his books on the final day of trade. Hobart's property market is cooling slightly. That's according to CoreLogic's August Home Value Index. Prices falling 0.8% in the last 3 months compared to gains of 1.7% nationally. The largest rises are seen in Adelaide and Perth, with upticks of 5% and 6% respectively.
Lauderdale is coming to terms with the reality of finishing the TSL season without star Sam Sigin. The coach describing the injury at Monday's training as traumatic as Sigin prepares for surgery on a broken ankle.
It's a pretty bad one, I think, so we'll have to wait and see what it looks like for him. And I think for him it's more about his long-term health, and he's got a young family. We sort of just have to get on with it and sort of just play with it, like that spirit that he does.
While the undefeated Northern Bombers are staying weary of the Demons, expecting them to be bringing in with confidence after recording their second win.
If you're mentally not ready and your mindset's not right, anyone can beat anyone on their given day. And for us, we've got some focuses, and I said that last week. We've got some key little things that we're working on at the moment that our group's trying to be improving.
Weekend is Paralysis Round, raising money for the Perry Cross Foundation in support of Ryan Wiggins, who broke his C2 diving into a pool. There's a huge bonus on offer in Saturday's second annual running of the Bow Tide race beyond the $80,000 kitty. The winning horse, if it's Tasmanian, gets a start in Sydney's $2 million Eureka in September. Tassie trainer Todd Rattray has one of the favourites after winning the honour last year with Magician.
Magician's too good. He scored by a half. Unbelievable. Experience that like no other, so it was worth the trip.
Tas Racing purchased a slot in the Eureka for 3 years, and we were quite solid on we wanted a Tasmanian horse to represent us.
Another top local hope is Nyack, who finished third last year. Hopefully we'll see a Tassie horse on the big stage, Murph.
Yeah, thanks Vic. We'll see you tomorrow night, and we'll see Kaya Wicks after the break with the weather.
Good evening. Hobart, Launceston and Devonport all 13 today, and Burnie reached 12. Flinders Island the high with 15, 14 for Smithton and St Helens. King Island, Low Head, Friendly Beaches and Grove all 13. Strawn 12, 11 the maximum for Marai Island and Ooze, and Laiwini reaching just 6. As we observe satellite conditions today, we saw a field of stratocumulus cloud over the majority of the state, with mostly low-level cloud to the east of Australia and across Tasmania as a frontal cloud band crosses WA. Tomorrow, a ridge will remain dominant over the eastern states as a cold front is expected to pass the southern ocean. Northeasterly winds 10 to 20 knots, increasing up to 30 knots in the west. West to southwesterly swells sitting at around 2.5 metres. We have a strong wind warning for coastal waters between Low Rocky Point around to Stanley. There has also been no change to the road weather alert that's been reissued for the central north, northeast, central plateau, Midlands, east coast, Upper Derwent Valley and the southeast for tomorrow. Mostly sunny in the state's capital, Hobart 14, partly cloudy in Huonville 15, fine for Campania, 15's the top there. A bit of cloud for Launceston 14, 13 and a couple of showers for Devonport and Georgetown. Showers easing in Burnie 13, 15 and partly cloudy in Strawn and 14 for Wynyard, with also showers that are likely to ease. St Helens 14 and possible showers, a few grey skies in Swansea 15, fine and sunny 14 on the way for Port Arthur. Saturday, showers about the west and north extending statewide, with snow likely to fall to 900 metres. Sunday, showers about the west and Bass Strait Islands, with snow remaining to the 900 metre mark. And Monday, showers about the west, far south and Bass Strait Islands, mostly fine elsewhere, with a possible morning frost in the north. Some lovely conditions on the way for Darwin and Broome tomorrow, with the mercury soaring to 33 degrees, 17 and cloudy in Perth, fine in Brisbane 22, and a couple of showers are on the way for Sydney. We can see a bit of a cloud around at the moment, Hobart 9 degrees and Launceston and Devonport 8. Now, you'll be pleased to hear that conditions are looking pretty good for the Scallop Fiesta on Sunday. King Murph.
Kaya, it's always good weather at Bridport. Thanks for that tonight.